Hello, everyone. Welcome as we discuss the newest episode of Rings of Power, the 6th episode. I'm here with the voices of Arda and the Podwans podcast as we talk about what I have learned is maybe a controversial episode of the Rings of Power. I'm very excited to see why this may have been controversial because I had a great time watching it.
Chase loved it.
I'm just so happy about
ruin that for him.
Please ruin it. I want to go back on the end so I can just type on the internet. Actually, here's where they ruined everything.
Little glasses.
Yeah, I'm excited to figure out. But thank you guys for being here. First of all, we have two new people that are on this little panel. We have Callie Cosplay. How you doing?
Hi.
And we have Kaya K. How are you?
Hi.
And then, of course, returning once again, we have Pete.
Pete's been holding it together, keeping it down for us.
Hi, I'm Pete.
Throughout this whole season.
Pete, you've been great to talk to. Just the lore knowledge you have that you've been able to dump into my brain has been incredible. I feel like I know slightly more about Lord of the Rings than I did at the beginning of season 2. So it feels cool. It feels really cool. But
that's the goal. That's the goal.
Yeah, and it's been a really cool experience because we've talked about it, and I do really enjoy season 2 more than season 1. But I also really did enjoy season 1 a lot. I had a great time with season 1, which is a hot take, I know, with some Tolkien.
I liked a lot of it. There was some stuff where I was like, oofa, you know?
Yeah, I get where people are coming from. Like coming from Star Wars, I kind of see it where it's like they're messing a little bit here, they're messing a little bit there. I'm usually trying to be like, it's fine. Like it's all I have space wizards, y'all have real wizards. Like it's all okay if things go out of whack. But a lot happened in this episode. This was a busy episode. I think this is probably the busiest episode of season 2 so far, with a lot happening in a lot of different places. But I think the first place I kind of want to start is kind of in Numenor, because we have the trial of Elendil he's going to go become friends with this big old cute little sea serpent thing that we get to meet later on. Again, Rings of Power, delivering the hottest monsters.
This is
consistently.
Yeah, the creature features. So.
But I did like the conversations that Elendil was having in this episode. I like the conversation he had with his daughter, especially. And basically saying like, if you think this is about pride, then you don't know anything about what's going on. And I really liked that moment that led into the Queen coming in to that cell. And just this was one of those scenes that it's really solidifying for me personally. Season 2, Elendil is becoming a really, really great character in this show. I really like his character. I really like what he's about, what he does. The stuff in last episode blew me away. Like that whole arc that he went through, and how Kemen should just die the most horrible death possible. But how did you guys feel? Like the Numenor stuff we got with this episode, was there anything that was very out of place, or are we feeling as good about last episode as we are this episode?
You guys want to go first? You want me to go first?
You can rail into the episode. You can tell me 800 first? Things that were. Yeah, of course.
What are our thoughts on Eregion, and is there a change of personality here? She went and she begged to have Queen Midiel come and see Elendil. Do you guys feel like there's a change of heart here?
I think she's starting to crack a little bit.
Yeah, I think she's starting to crack a little bit.
I think
that silence was deafening. We did a great job.
It's not that. Because last night we had a good time watching it. We had a lot of fun with Lee and Emily. Just a lot more insight coming from everyone. And overall, it's just I think what's going on here is, once again, the pacing's off. Some of the lore choices, or the use of Lord of the Rings dialogue that we've come to love in these books, were all, what is it, like 60,000 words or something like that? Tolkien said were considered. It feels weird to be using phrases from it in a different capacity than they are in the books. And that goes to say with most of the episode, because there's a few times with Durin the Third saying Bilbo lines or Bombadil saying Gandalf lines. And, you know, I'm worried they just don't have enough time. I'm even okay with the sea worm because that's just totally not in any lore basis of any kind. But we're
It's
okay
fun.
with that.
It's fun. Yeah.
It's fun. I like it. I like that. But I just think they got to tone it down a bit. Like we don't need you to be like dropping these hints of, oh yeah, well we have the rights to these books and we could use this sentence and this one and like, you know. Then the same thing with the start of season 1 with what Halbrand said was the line Galadriel says to, you know, Frodo and stuff. It's like, it's a lot. We don't need it. It's cool. Don't worry. We're okay with this. We like the show.
Yeah, I think I'd rather them make stuff up like the sea worm instead of put stuff in where it doesn't belong, because then that just feels like forced fan service.
Exactly. I was just about to ask, like, I didn't know that. I was like, oh, I'm sure that I will learn where this sea worm comes from, that he probably has a name and I'm going to learn about his mommy and his daddy. No, okay, so he's new.
They're nameless things for...
Yeah.
There's a couple things, and the sea worm in Tolkien comes from, it's more of a word like in the back of the book that either with the histories or in Tom Bombadil, where they do talk about serpents and like, you know, creatures of the sea. And also it's stated in the Silmarillion when they talk about Olmo in the sea, there's things unknown below there and such, as well as the nameless thing. So there's like some basis for it. There's an actual word for sea serpent. I just can't. It's like the Uru Loki or something like that. I don't remember. Don't ask me. I'm like,
you could throw any syllables together and I would believe you.
And on some
I'll look it
versions
up.
of the map, there is like, if you look into the ocean that's going off to the west, there's like a little serpent something in the water there. Yeah, there's something swimming in there. I don't know what that is, but
well, so, maybe this is him.
Here it is. It's the Lingwe Loki. Sorry, it's Lingwe Loki. That's what it is. I'll drop that word in there in chat. But so, yeah, that's something that's referenced.
I thought the serpent looked cool. I thought he was a cool monster. The tendrils kind of wrapping around the queen was really cool. But I also liked that scene in particular, like when he is going to be cast into this blue hole that leads into the sea as basically a, you know, trial by sea. Like if the serpent, you know, throws you out, you're innocent. And this feels in line. The one thing I'll say, and you guys can 100% correct me if I'm wrong. The only thing that I was like, this feels a little off, is because this feels like a very ancient tradition that Numenor could have, that our Pharazôn is leaning into when he seems to want to have a very new age of Numenor. And then going back to the old ways feels almost out of character for him. Like instead of like, no, we're not doing trial by the serpent. We don't even know if the serpent exists. We're going to, you know, just cut your head off right here. You know, like that was the one thing that I was like, he is kind of going back into these old ways. And again, at any time, interrupt me if I'm totally wrong on this. But I liked that the queen came in and was like, no, I'm going.
I love Tarmir. I love the actor. I like everything.
She's so good.
Yeah,
she's
like lore stuff aside, the Numenor, the scene and the acting and like the cinematography and everything was truly incredible. Like the setting, wherever they were, that's an amazing place to be. And I saw some behind the scenes stuff, and it was like one day the waves were crashing in so high that nobody could, like, it wasn't safe to be there, and they had to all leave. So like that's dedication to the
practical
scene.
Effects too is awesome, because they said like when they were talking. What's your name? Cynthia, right?
Cynthia Robinson.
And when they were speaking to her about it, they're like, "Oh, well, they have us out here going in, but then you have to go to a pool, and they do like this whole like mix and match of the scenes." I thought that was so cool. And I also found out the Anatar Sauron illusion was practical effects too, apparently, which is like this stuff I love about the adaptations. And I always think back to stuff that Tolkien himself said. He said, you know, he truly believed fantasy was meant for literature. But I think he would change his mind if he saw some of the wild shit going on. You know? Like,
that looks cool.
He's like, that's pretty cool.
But to answer your question, Chase, like that has been brought up. What we sort of think is that our Pharazôn was using the old methods as a way to kind of be sarcastic, I think is sort of, he was kind of using it ironically, I guess, but also to try to gain legitimacy with the faithful, to say like, look, your gods decided this, it's out of my hands, like I didn't kill her, your gods killed her, your system did that.
That makes total sense.
They said something about like no one surviving it or something, or like it gave the impression of that no one survived it before. I don't know. It's a strange thing.
Lore wise, it is a bit strange, but
it's strange that she survived, like that the serpent like set her free, or
that this entire civilization would use that as a justice system.
Okay.
Like they're more advanced, I think, and they seem to be better.
But I wonder if this is like a once in a generation or once in every other generation type of like punishment or something like that. I mean,
it felt like abandoned. It was definitely an abandoned practice, and it was, to Callie's point, very much a mockery of the faithful. And I think like Pharazôn was looking to almost like embarrass Elendil, being like, look at this is what your beliefs lead to. You're gonna be like,
I could 100% see that. Yeah.
So, and he also sees that everyone supports Elendil, because in like the scene, I love the scene in the opening where he's like, they call him Elendil, son of Amandil, because Amandil is not something to discuss in the show yet. Amandil is the last Lord of Andunier. He actually tried to do the same thing Erendil did and go to the Valar for help when everything got so bad in Numenor, because Pharazôn and stuff and what happens later. So it was cool to see that, but like him like walking up and pointing to him, I like started dying laughing.
Oh my god!
I don't know why.
That was so metal. No.
I was like, yeah. I started laughing pretty hard, but I loved it. I love everything. I just love Numenor, and a lot of people were a little dissatisfied. One of the big things was the crowds, and with that scene too, you see the crowd right there. Then you look in the back though, there are people standing all up on the cliffs above them, so there is a good sized crowd. I don't know. I kind of enjoyed it. It was silly.
I enjoyed all the stuff. And speaking of practical effects, and then now not so practical effects, I did love the effect of when our Pharazôn touches the Palantir and just how it kind of cracks apart, and then he sees what's going on, and then it comes back together, and I was like, that was a cool effect. That looked really good. And the sound design behind it was really good.
Yeah.
And I do like that he is this like conniving little man where he's just like, yes, the faithful are all terrible, and no, we don't do it. We're the new age of Numenor. Let me go touch my little magic ball here and see what's going on. Really,
temptation of it.
Yeah.
I like that.
I all the Numenor stuff this season I have really liked, and I think it was kind of a highlight of this episode for me, at least, with the exception of something later on that I really like. What you talked about, that transition in Eregion, that was so cool. But yeah, like Numenor for me has been a huge hit this season, and this episode included. I thought the serpent trial was awesome. I think seeing just the interactions between Elendil, his daughter, and the queen, like that hit me a lot, just to see where everything is. I like that she kind of still walks in regal clothing into the cell. Like she's not being like totally shushed away and stuff like that. Like she's still being taken care of. So I like that. And there's a lot of stuff that I really enjoy about Numenor.
Miriel has so much pride and dignity and strength, and it really showed through in this episode a lot.
Yeah. She continues to show that she is a leader through and through, far more than Pharazôn is. Like Pharazôn would never take the place of someone that he trusted and he felt was being wronged, whereas Miriel would and did. And I think that it just shows her character and just how great she is. So I really love her character. But kind of moving on to Khazad-dum, where things continue to get worse and worse. And this is something that I just feel was a theme of the episode, was just corruption everywhere. And we're starting to see it in every aspect around, including where we see the Harfoots in the stores. Is we're starting to see that we saw that in the maybe not last episode, but the episode before. But just the descent of madness that King Doran is going through, and just like when you see the wheelbarrow full of gold just leaking and pouring over, and
it's like towers beside his throne.
Yeah, and it's like oh my god,
very Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah, I want to see him swimming through it. But this was another thing that I did, and I do enjoy. It's not that I enjoy seeing him go through it, but I enjoy the process. It's very interesting to see. I think when Anatar comes to Khazad-dum, and just I don't know what's the actor's name that plays him?
Charlie Vickers.
Charlie Vickers.
Kai was so fast on that. She like,
yeah. I kind of want to ask Kai about like the dwarf stuff, because you had a great video today, and talking about science and dwarves and how with Disa especially. I'd love to hear your opinion on the whole like greed thing going on.
The greed thing? Oh my god!
Yeah, especially with the king too.
No, I don't know.
And then the bats thing. Also talk about the bats.
First of all, I love the bats. So when the initial the trailer had came out and everyone was just like, what the hell is with the bats? I was just like, I want to say I think I know, but I also don't want to put my foot in my mouth. And so then that episode, the last episode where she goes into that cavern and then she sings and then the bats come down and I'm like, I knew it. I freaking knew it.
You know what vibe it gives me is like, you ever see that meme of that girl and she has like the bird and like she taught the bird to attack. She screams at him. It was like, that's what I felt like Disa was doing. Yeah. Like just like the bird comes striking out.
That's exactly how that felt this episode. But like when they did that, the last episode, I was like, oh my god, I knew they were gonna do it, and I don't know if that was just like my autism going through a little bit, but I was like, oh, I freaking knew it. And then with the whole greed thing, when that scene when Durden is talking to Disa and he's getting all emotional, being like, oh, like this greed is coming out, but I still see him. In my head, I was like, well, yeah, because the ring doesn't take hold of him the way it does with the Nazgul, but it just exemplifies his bad characteristics. So he's still in there. It's just his bad stuff is being louder than the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's why he's so convinced that like he knows, like he says, he's like, I've never been so clear in mind. Well, yeah, for all your bad intents that you want more like wealth from even selling the rings to the other dwarf lords and the other 6. Like, I'm curious if they're going to show that by the end of the season where like they show the rings being handed out. But I do like how he says no to Anatar. It's like, no, like, what do you get out of here? You're going to pay.
Yeah. See, even with that, in my head, I was like, okay, so this is how Anatar is going to get those rings back. He's going to come in and out of spite, he's going to take them. And then that's how he's going to end up getting those 7 and the 9 and then hand them out, hopefully next season.
That would be very cool. I didn't even think about that. And, Doran, I don't know what's going to happen to Doran in the 3rd this season. I'm worried for him. I'm worried.
I think next season we're probably going to see his funeral.
You said it, not me.
I was just saying. I mean, we saw one dad die this season. I think we're going to see another one next season. I don't think we saw one last season.
Oof, yeah. It's a little wild. Well, they had the funeral this time, but like Tar Palantir, passed away last season.
Yeah, that's true.
Still, it's a lot of dads dying here. I don't want to see any more. And then like we're going to end the whole series with Elendil. I don't want to talk about it.
Well, I think there's going to be another father death this season, but I don't know. I hope I'm wrong, but
oh wow, yeah.
2 episodes left. No, but the thing that I really liked, I loved just the performances that were in this. Just when Anatar gets rejected by Doran, and he's just like, okay. No problem. I'll deal with this later.
Right, and he sees the Balrog. He's like, I'm gonna go.
Yeah, backup plan. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and
his micro expressions are amazing though. Like
he's such a good actor.
the seething anger in his eyes, and the shock. Right? He's like, "Oh wow, like these dwarven rings are not working the way I intended. Like if they had worked the way I thought, you would have said yes. Like I thought this was a done deal." So all that realization happening in his face when his face is just not moving. It's amazing.
Yeah. He's so good. And what you just brought up is the scene under the tree when Prince Doran is like crying because like he's losing his father, but he says, I still see him in there, but it's just like he can't get to him. And it's just like it's like heartbreaking. But when Disa comes up to him and comforts him and reassures him and tells him that like what we're gonna do isn't because we hate your father, and it's just like I love that moment. Disa continues to impress me.
Yeah.
Every moment she's on screen, I love her so much. I love that we're getting more of her now in this season. Like she felt very sparse in the first few episodes, but now like she's becoming more and more involved. And the bats when she starts singing at the miners, and I was like, oh, is she going to cause a cave in? I was like, no, it's like she is summoning some creature. Or creatures. And I thought that was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought that was great. I just loved that she was just like standing there in the cave. She was like, yep, oh, you're here. Oh, here's what I'm gonna do now.
Actually, he just falls more in love with her. He's like,
oh my god,
we all
lift her up and down. I was just like,
yeah, right.
She's great. She is definitely like one of my very, very favorite things about this show. Like from season 1 until now, like she has been like a star for me.
The dwarves stay consistently strong like throughout the whole series. From the first one where it's like, we didn't get as much. I really love Durin the Third, the older Durin's performance in the first season, like when he talks about mom and like him being a baby and stuff. It was like dwarf, like having I saw the beard of a dwarf, Lord of Old, like it was so cool. And then to see it breaks my heart. It just shows a good like storyline where it's like my heart's breaking seeing Durin the Fourth.
But he's so good. His dad, he's so good at it. Like the performances alone, I think in this season have just been stronger and stronger. It feels with every episode. Like you're right. Like I did enjoy Durin the Third in season 1. I thought he was great. I thought the conversations he was having with his son were impactful. While you don't necessarily agree with him and everything, you understand where he's coming from. And to see this spiraling down, it's awful, but he's delivering it so well. And it's so believable.
The show hits harder for me because like, I lost my dad a few years ago, and like, they keep bringing up all these different relationships from like Isildur and Elendil at the end of season 1, and then now like Durin the Third and Durin the Fourth. And then like seeing Elendil hugging his daughter, like it kind of broke my heart a little because it's just like, there's just these fathers going through so much right now, especially Elendil. But like Durin the Third, like, he hit his son away like that. I don't know. That like broke my heart. It very much broke my heart.
Yeah. I feel that with the whole Arda and the Elendil thing, because it's like I lost my dad too. And right before he had passed, him and I were starting to like, remend our relationship. And I'm just looking at Arda and being like, bitch, I swear to God, you better not make me cry. You better make him cry.
Yeah, I feel that.
I hope she's a character that I want to have a redemption arc like very badly, but I can also see it going like the opposite direction where she just goes further into the wrong side.
Well, let's talk about bad dads, Farazan, and how he treats Kemen. But this is why Kemen acts the way.
No wonder Kemen.
Kemen deserves every awful thing that happens to him.
Well, yeah, with a father like that, I'd probably be a piece of shit too.
Kemen the bitch,
No, Kemen does whatever Kemen gets coming to him. It's not enough.
Also, we don't think that Eregion. No, she doesn't seem to know the day after that Kemen killed Valandil the way he did. Like I think
he had her something different.
Yeah. So that what is something has to come home to roost. So and Something about birds and roosting. Anyway.
Yeah. I think only Elendil and Kemen and the guards that were there know what happened at this point. And that is a plot point I'm very excited to see unravel. When that gets revealed.
Doing a good microcosm of like the Kingsmen and Faithful now. At the start, I was just like, nah, you know, and then like, you know, like elves who don't sleep, the whole thing. I was like, all right, bro, like chill. But now I feel it a little more, and I'm digging it. I like how Eregions in the middle of it, you know.
I think sometimes. Yeah, I think that these have been very strong points of the show. Is the stuff going on in Khazad-dum, the stuff going on in Numenor is very, very strong. And I could be wrong, but I think we're about to jump into the stuff we maybe don't like. Or has this been the stuff that we didn't like? We'll talk about it at the end. We'll talk about it. Great. Because I want to move on to Eregion. What's going on in Eregion? The relationship that continues to be this, like, I just feel like it is a boiling pot that is almost about to boil over between Celebrimbor and Sauron and Adar. Is that Celebrimbor almost always feels like he's on that brink of like, there's something wrong about you and you're screwing everything up, but Anatar always pulls him back in. Just like, it's just one or two lines where he's just like, no, come back in. I'm not going to hurt you. And Celebrimbor was like, okay, you're right. And it's like, they tease it so much, and it's just like, you're like, please see the reason, and it's just not happening.
It's like, it's the perfect like abusive relationship.
They're showing this so well.
It's kind of messing me up a little. Like, you want Celebrimbor to be like, just break out of it.
After watching their interactions. Like, you feel
like he's like the way he forgets Mordania's name. First off, they must like have known we would say something about like her not being like looking like Galadriel and maybe being her daughter. Yeah. They must have known because they're like messing with us so hard with it.
Well, I mean, the scene where he forgets her name and it's just like he's so far gone. The corruption in his brain is just like consuming him, and he's like we haven't really seen elves behave like this, at least in this show. Where it's just this like short-tempered, uncomposed, and just like can't get it together. And it's like, this is one of the, like, even not knowing anything about these characters, like this is one of the most well-regarded people like amongst the elves, and he's struggling. And it's so sad to watch. And the moment that he hears the siege horns, or there's the sound that there's the Eregion's under siege, and Sauron slams that window closed, and it's damn, do it again.
yeah, like, oh yeah, when he shoves him, I was like, oh my god, like it's like, please,
Sauron's taking a little bit of abuse in this episode.
Don't hurt Anatar. No, I was kidding.
But when the thing that like I think was the biggest, craziest thing was Celebrimbor walking out, like it's nighttime and he's been working all day. He walks outside, boom, broad daylight. And
it's a good trick, eh?
And it's like, it's one of those things, like it took like half a second of like, what? Oh, you son of a bitch. and just seeing all of the elves playing and just having a good time.
We're doing poetry.
It's his perfect utopia of Eregion happening in front of him.
Yeah, two little elves having a PDA moment in the corner.
Yeah,
you know.
And it's just like, I was like, oh my god. The one thing that I was like, I don't want to make it as it's such a small nitpick, is like there was so many where the blocking and placement of everyone was. I was like, is this going, because clearly they're going to have a transition at some point, like where everyone was, is that going to turn into a horrible scene with the people still in their places, but they just have to shift a little. That didn't happen, but still the effect they pulled off of the camera rotating from day into night around Sauron was just, it was spooky, and I really liked it. That was when he reassures him. Celebrimbor goes back into the tower, and then Anatar basically he just pulls the knight back in. I loved that scene. That was such a cool moment. Just the panic that set in, like, and you said it was practical, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How did they do that?
I don't know. They had like some sort of mirror thing, and the lights were up, and then the lights were down. And if you go to YouTube, like the Prime account on YouTube, after every like Thursday when the episode drops, they have an extra little behind the scenes or interview with either the actors or Bear or the directors, and like it adds a lot of insight. So it's like usually under 10 minutes thing, and so as soon as I watch the episode, I go over to YouTube and I watch that on the Prime, and it's very nice.
It was both a visually impressive scene and just a cool scene to watch in general. Like I really enjoyed that whole sequence.
I want to ask you all though. We have this scene where like Feanor's hammer and this material is given. I say material because I don't think it's mithril. But what are your guys' thoughts? Like Callie, Kai, what do you think is in the jar? It was a pretty cool jar. It was like quartz. They like carved out quartz and had a top. I dug it.
When I saw him cut his hand, I was like, "Oh, what are you doing that for?" And then when he handed him the mithril, I was like, "No, it's not.
Totally just your goop."
Absolutely.
Goop in a jar?
Goop in a jar.
It could be a goop jar.
It's a goop
crystallized
jar.
Where else do you keep your goop but a beautiful quartz jar? I have multiple crystallized jars for my goop.
Of goop.
Yeah.
So Celebrimbor is going to make the ring thinking it's mithril, but it's actually Sauron goop.
I don't know. I feel like he took the because someone pointed out the mouse. Yeah, I remember when he threw the piece of mithril down. There's the mouse. I was like, "What's up with the mouse?" Whatever. So I was like, "It's Sauron." I was like, "Maybe." I did eat a rat earlier. But I think it's he took the remnants of something. I like to think it's so weird they bring up Morgoth's crown in this, and that's something I know we'll talk about a little later because I feel like that's Adar and Galadriel was something that I'm not going to say was a bad part of the show, but it was just an interesting,
heavily criticized.
Heavily criticized.
I'm not going to say it because I liked it.
Well, it's just you don't know ramifications of Morgoth's crown.
I don't know. I thought that was Sauron's crown. So when I may have missed something even in the show, but I was like, I thought that was his crown. I didn't realize that was Morgoth's. And I was like, oh, cool, Morgoth's crown.
I mean, it's technically his crown now, even though I don't know. In my head, I don't know. In my head canon, Sauron just kind of side eyes hand me downs, so I don't see him taking someone else's crown. So I think that's a choice that they made with taking Morgoth's. So.
Okay.
The crown is also used as a collar. That's what happens. The Valar show up in the War of Wrath, and that they win. Yeah, Kaya, if you want to explain it, by all means.
Oh no, you can go.
Sorry, it's Eingenor, I believe it's called, and it's they hew his legs, is what they say, and then they take his crown and they beat him into a collar and they drag him away into the void of night, sending him to oblivion, unless you believe in the Dagor Dagorath. I don't know. I like to, but so it's for them to have the crown now here,
just sitting there in a random little box,
because then for those who know the lore, it's just okay, well then how did they get Morgoth out of here? If they don't collar him up, chain him, throw him out. It's not they were just all right this way, sir.
And then there's the implications of the Silmarils, which ties into a larger thing that the apocryphal tale of the Hithliglir, and one of the worst parts of the whole series, in my opinion. It's a creative choice. They tried it, didn't work in my opinion. But now we have Morgoth's thing, and Adar kind of insinuating that the crown was the reason he was able to hurt Sauron, and I'm like, maybe I don't know.
I mean, I guess that would kind of make sense, maybe because I guess. Maybe Morgoth would put some of his power into making his own crown. And then, how else?
It had to be strong enough to hold the Silmarilli, right? So
yeah. And there had to have been some kind of magic in it in order for him to use it to backstab Sauron to where his entire Feyre is just like, okay, peace out.
Yeah, pretty much. I was thinking, like, since they say he reforges the crown, like with the blood stuff, like maybe that's the material he's using, which would tie in, because I only think that because it would tie in so well with like what Mithril is in the show, where it's like imbued silver with the light of the Silmarils. Well, Morgoth's crown's materials also have been somewhat imbued by the light of the Silmarils. But that was the only thing. It's definitely the blood thing with Anatar and, you know, whatever material he chose. Found some dirt on the side of the road and was like, here, dude. Like,
gravel from the driveway. Yeah,
yeah, like, it's so sneaky.
No, I definitely think it's probably like the remnants of the other mithril that they used. Like you said, Pete, but like instead of more mithril, it's more Sauron. So that way, because I think maybe he saw Durin and he's just like, okay, I need to do something a little bit different to make it just a little bit stronger. Instead of holding the mithril, I'm going to put myself in the mithril.
And you see this kind of transition of power from like the elven rings. I like how they did. I know it's like subverted, where we know the story differently, where the rings are initially meant for the elves, and then they make the 3, and then, you know, the one's made. But I kind of enjoy it because it shows this transition of corruption over time. I dig it. It's like these perfect rings, the 3, and then the dwarven rings have been tainted. Now the 9 have his essence in it, and then the 1 will be the binding. And it's like, I kind of dig it. I kind of like the approach. Maybe that's just me. I know a lot of people weren't cool with that, but you know, I could let my imagination fly a little with the whole thing.
No, I think it's good for the people who are coming in new to Tolkien. So I think that's for them, not for us. And I think it's a good way to basically explain to them these rings. And I think if they're going to show this part, like this timeline in Tolkien, I think it's a good way to show the downfall of Celebrimbor. Because in my head, the way that I'm seeing it is the way he's making the rings after he's getting paranoid after the 7. He's like, okay, I can't be like Feanor. I need to fix this. And so then he makes a 9.
I like it. I definitely like it. And I think a couple people in the chat are bringing up some really good points, because they bring up Eowl's swords, like, you know, Anglicel and Gurthang, and what it says to Turin at the end, you know, yea, I will drink the blood of the one who slayed my master. Gladly, he says. So it's like cool to see that. That's a really cool reference.
Tolkien definitely has that theme where when you create something, you imbue it with a part of yourself and inevitably give up a part of yourself. Like when elven women have babies, they often sometimes fade themselves because they put so much of themselves into making this little elf baby that
and it ties in with Morgoth's ring, and the concept of the marring of Arda, of the spring of Arda, is a huge theme throughout the whole story of the Legendarium, where, you know, as Morgoth became more obsessed with taking from others and ruling and dominating, where when he first comes down and he sees the majestic raiments of the other Valar, he becomes immediately jealous. And when he takes his form, it's dark and terrible with storm clouds around his head. And like, you know, he literally tears down everything they work on. If Owl lay raised in the mountains, he tears them down. He spills the oceans over. He tears down Iluin and Ormal, the first source of light.
Jerk.
Like, he's just such a jerk about
kicking
everything.
over sandcastles.
Yeah, even Sauron's probably been somewhat imbued with his power, and to a sense, like even all the way back in the Discord of Melkor and the Ainulindle. So it's like, it's cool that they're keeping this theme going. And I know a lot of people don't like this episode, but this episode felt really more for people not like us, people who are learning about this, and they need to understand an in-world aspect of this without being over-explained and delving in. Where even Galadriel says, I heard that, you know, she knows the crown where it's supposed to be, almost like we're saying it ourselves. Like, I heard this is another tale, but yet here's the crown right in front of you. So it's an interesting choice they've made. It's one I can respect, though.
Well, the one thing that I did like about the Galadriel stuff, and we didn't get a lot of time with Galadriel and Adar, is I liked that where we kind of see her almost going against her character, but she's slowly piecing everything together, but like, and trying not to reveal it all to Adar, because where she's starting to like seem like she's going to help him, and when she sees the it's just like, you know, you can't do this with one legion, and then he shows her like, no, I have like every orc you've ever imagined behind me, and then she like has that moment of revelation of like, you just brought Sauron his army. Like you just walked into his trap. And it's like it's the best way I can like maybe explain it, the way that I see it is, it's like she's under Sauron's influence for a little bit, and she's trying to claw her way out of it. And she has these moments like this in the episode where she's like, this is what he's doing. He wants us to think he's doing one thing, but we just full on walked into what he wants from us. As you said, he promised me an army, and now I have an army, and it's like, this was never going to be my army. It's never going to be Adar's army. This is his.
And she kind of lied to him too, because he powered her. He promised her power. You know, he didn't say an army, and I found that interesting because you're right. Her idea of Sauron isn't the one we know now. It's Halbrand. Halbrand's her idea of Sauron, and we saw that earlier in the season when she calls him Halbrand. And so there's definitely, like we see it in the trailer, there's definitely going to be a showdown between Galadriel and Sauron. But I think this time she's not going to fall to the vision, and it's going to be a parallel of the season finale from the first season, where instead she will be able to like somewhat defeat him in a sense, and he'll like cower back to Mordor to regain himself and like start taking the rings and handing them out and such. Or maybe I really hope they just drop it on us and they make the one. I know it's going to happen next season, but like I figure it's going to happen next season, but it would be really cool for it to be the last scene of the series of this season, where it's just him pounding away.
I think that I do the direction that we've gone. I do think that the end of this season 100% is Sauron taking back Mordor and with the orcs. I think that's kind of like almost an inevitability, unless there's something I might be missing.
Which I don't think spells good things for Adar. I love him, but I'm not getting attached to him.
I think Adar is a season 1-2 villain.
Yeah, unless they end up making Adar the mouth of Sauron.
Oof. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I mean, it'd be interesting.
I don't think he would do it.
I hope not. I saw someone say that on Threads, and I was just like, that would be a choice.
The mouth of Sauron's a good place to be, though, if we're being honest. But the last part of this episode that was kind of done, which wasn't a big part, but it was the return of fan favorite Tom Bombadil.
Tommy B.
We got Tom in his blue cloak. And we got him in his hat, so he looks good. He looks fresh. I love it. I really liked the scene with him and the stranger at the. I don't know if there's a name for that place, but where all the trees were, where he was going to get his staff.
I just called it the elephant graveyard, but I don't think that's what it is.
Yeah, they were where Mufasa died. But I liked that scene, and I liked what Tom said to the stranger. It's like, are you going to choose your friend or your destiny? And I think the stranger's a smart guy. I think he's gonna figure out how to do both. I think he'll realize that my friend is my destiny, and that there is no choice to be made here, and that he won't be able to save Nori unless he gets that staff. And if anything happens to Nori or Poppy,
you're right.
We're all writing.
Yeah. I'm done with the show. I quit.
I didn't put it in the notes. Can we talk about Poppy?
With Merrimack? I think that's his name was Merrimack.
Oh my gosh, that was the cutest thing I think I've ever seen.
She's like holding the snake with all her like.
Yeah, she's still holding the snake while they're kissing. I was like, this is the most adorable thing. I was giggling and cackling the whole time. But because like Mary Max was just very goofy and aloof, and he's like, "Oh yeah, my parents didn't know what to name me."
What a sweetheart, though. He's so sweet.
Yeah, it's like, "Oh, 1 or 2. Oh, that's not that long. No, 1 or 2 years ago." And she's like, "Oh."
Oh. She kind of looked at him like, "What the fuck?" You're lucky you're cute, you know. She's kind of dumb.
I loved that scene so much. It was so precious. It solidified no one. It made me nervous because like something's gonna happen to Mary back. They're gonna make it heartbreaking in a way, but I don't think anything's allowed to happen to Poppy or Nori. They have to survive forever.
Well, here's the problem. I do think, I hope they do a bit of a time jump with next season to demonstrate Numenor's longevity of their like blessed life. So that would mean that like Nori and Poppy gonna pass away or get older, extremely older. And like I do hope they do something with it. I think my biggest problem was probably the stuff with Bombadil and the Stranger. And I know I actually love to hear that you enjoy it, or I'm sorry, enjoyed it. But the use of the line there, about death is a line that I believe Gandalf says in the movie. It's in Moria to Frodo. I think it's similar in the books too. But it's like not what they're talking about is he says it's a pity that Bilbo didn't kill Gollum. What a wretched thing. And, that's when Gandalf says that line, about death. And, it comes to be true at the end when Frodo's holding the ring and he's screaming at Gollum. And he's like, you will not touch me. If you touch me, you will die. And like in Samwise season, it's like a dark figure and a light figure, like striving for power. It just felt misused. I don't know. How do you guys feel about it? Like Kai and Callie?
So when I watched the episode, I took notes on it. And I kind of talked myself into a circle with that because my initial thing was like, I liked it because I just liked the quote itself. But then as I kept thinking about it more, I was like, I don't like that Tom Bombadil used it because then that will imply to people who haven't read the books that Gandalf learned that lesson from Tom, and it's in the wrong context because that quote is supposed to be meant in the context of pity, and I like to think that he learned it, and I like to think that he learned that from Nienna, not like okay, you do this or Middle Earth burns.
So just to jump on what Kaya just said, what she means by Nienna, who's a Valar, is that the Maya that we meet usually associate with a specific Valar. For example, the Balrogs are associated with Morgoth, but Sauron, who was Mairon at first, was associated with Aule, the creator, who the dwarves reference all the time. Nienna was associated with Gandalf, and she's known for exactly that, pity, grief, and weeping, and to understand that deep wisdom. Because one thing that's really cool about Lord of the Rings is that sorrow enriches all. So it's weird, to Kaya's point, and she brings up a really great point here, is that like referencing Nienna just did not feel right to have it be this way,
Yeah, I think out of all the quotes that they could have had him use, all like the riddles that they could have had him use, I think that one was a bad choice. At least from someone who is a lore enthusiast, but from someone who I guess would be coming from the movies, like just the movies, not reading the books, then it's cool.
TJ's comment brings me to the next point that I was going to make, and we were talking about it earlier in a group chat with Kelly, the middle page, and there is this dissonance with that scene. So at first Tom was like, oh, you can't decide who lives and who dies, like you don't have that power, and then right away after he's like, oh, but you have to decide if the whole world lives or dies or if it's your friend. So it's kind of like do I have a choice or do I not have a choice? it's incongruous.
That's what makes me wonder, is if the way that Tom tends to speak is it's a lot of nonsense that means a lot. And
I like that way of putting it.
Yeah.
And I like when he was saying it, what I was gathering that Tom was saying to the stranger, who's definitely not Gandalf, was, I'm going to tell you that you have a choice that is an impossible choice to make, and that that you can't make an impossible choice, and that these are like, that's why I feel like these are going to be one and the same, is that I'm not going to stand here and tell you that, well, you're going to need your staff to save Nori, so you need to go get your staff and then go to Nori, and says, no, you have to choose. You've got to choose to get the staff, or you could.
I did like that. I like that because it was almost like a trick. He's like, we know what you're going to want to do. And it's like, maybe that's the choice the Dark Wizard was given as well to some capacity. And instead he chose to get power. And that's why we're in this situation right now. I get it. I do get it.
Yeah. You know, whatever path they choose, whether I think they will converge in a way, like a staff and Nori. Either he goes to get the staff and that's how he saves Nori, or he saves Nori and that's how he gets the staff. They will, I think, converge into one point. And I'm more than happy to be proven wrong in the next 2 episodes. I think that was what Tom was saying all along, is that there is no choice here. I'm telling you there's a choice, but obviously, you know, there's no choice. You have to do the right thing. And maybe it's even a thing. It's like, if you can't save Nori, then how could you save all of Middle Earth? You have to be able to save one person to save them all. Like,
save the cheerleader, save the world.
Exactly.
Save the halfling, save Middle Earth.
and it's one of those things, like, I do hope this is a big payoff. We have 2 episodes left. But that will come in time. But all of that being said, I like the episode a lot. I feel like I've talked a lot about, like, just the performances and maybe the implications of what's going on. The lore, obviously, right over my head. I get it. But the one thing that I really did take away from both this episode and the previous episode is they are doing a lot of exciting things going on with very little action. And I think that's very difficult to do. And I think it's impressive the way they're doing it, because I think one of the highlights for a lot of people about, like, the Peter Jackson trilogy is these grand battle schemes or battle scenes and these impressive vistas as they walk across mountains and stuff like that. And there's all this stuff going on. Whereas it feels much more intimate. Feels very much about these people and how they're going to be connected. And I think it's very impressive how they're kind of keeping it all exciting without a lot of swords clashing, which is really cool. Because, like, in the Star Wars fandom, if lightsabers don't hit in 20 minutes, people riot.
I want more lightsabers. I need men with many lightsabers. Then they gave me Grievous, and I was like, "That's great.
Yeah.
I love that."
There's a whole episode we could do about Grievous and how much I don't like him. But, anyways, this is another episode, and I do want a little bit of action here and there, because, like, they have all of this stuff going on where the siege has started. We saw these huge catapults raining down on Eregion, and we're starting to see these buildings fall, and it's like, oh my god, like this is about to start. Obviously, the next episode is most likely going to involve a pretty intense battle, which can be exciting. Action can be a lot of fun, but I do really like how they're enticing everything without all of that, and I like that a lot about this show, because other shows, fantasy, science fiction, all of that, have tried it, and it has fallen flat in a lot of ways. But I think I think the conversations that people are having, the situations that people are getting themselves into, are very interesting. And things like what we talked about with The Stranger and Tom, is it's like these are very tough choices, and how we get to these conclusions and what they do. It's all very interesting to me. But I want to pass this obviously to you guys, because this, I don't, it doesn't seem like you guys hated this episode, but it maybe just wasn't a favorite. And I'm very curious to get, like, more thoughts from all of you.
Why don't you guys go first?
Well, so what you're saying about the difference between the big battle thing and the human connections that we actually take time and care with on the screen. A lot of Tolkien people believe that's what Tolkien was about. Like, if you read the books, he'll span a 10-year war in half a page, but then spend 6 pages describing the forest and the trees. Mm-hmm. Like, Tolkien's essence, his spirit, wasn't really in the big battles, and I get that that's more visually appealing. I get that you can't have a movie where people are like, nobody's gonna watch that movie. But
Lord of the Rings was more about walking around. If you didn't
notice,
a lot
of walking.
All they do is walk around.
Even the trees walk in that movie.
Exactly. But so I feel a little bit. I'm loving the show, loving season 2. I'm having a lot of fun, but I feel like we're moving more into a realm of fantasy TV and getting a little bit away from Tolkien in that regard, because we're getting a lot of the action and the creature features and all of that really exciting stuff, which I understand makes for compelling television watching. But I think there are a subsect of us Tolkien people who still think that Tolkien's not really about all that really big crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Kaya, how did you feel?
I mean, I've said it a few times already. I think that this episode was very much not meant for us. It was meant for the people who are new to the fandom, by like, just I guess getting them ramped up for the last 2 episodes. I'm really hoping that they don't span this battle over the last 2 episodes. I'm really hoping that I hope it's just like, obviously not quick, because the sack of Eregion is not quick, but I hope it isn't just fighting, isn't just fire, isn't just battles and everything, because there's a whole lot more going on. So I hope it's just not fan service exciting. I hope it's also lore exciting, because I love the name drops. I love the details and the care that they're taking into like the world building, the lore dropping, and like the relationship building. But I just don't want them to force it for the people who like. I don't want them to force it to make it enjoyable to the people who are gonna hate it anyway. So I don't know.
I very much agree with it being meant for people who aren't very deep into this lore, and I don't mind it. I thought it was very cool, and a lot of it, like some of us said, that it didn't move the story very much. I don't agree with that. I think the episode did like get us to the point where they need to set up this large battle, and as much as I don't agree with it, I mean, Tolkien does dedicate chapters to Helm's Deep, and it's not very battle-esque per se at times, but he was very well known for like writing about his rugby games in school and it being a very momentous and enjoyable read for everyone else. But I just hope they don't, like Callie said, make it the whole focus of this show, like culminating in this battle. This should be the rings of power. Like you've had them focus making these rings. Like let's keep that going. Let's finish that up. Let's see what happens with Bombadil and the Stranger. How are you going to do this all in 2 episodes though? And like Bath Time and the chat brought up Arondir, and like Arondir just being there felt like it was a completely different episode. We didn't even talk about it. It was the first scene of the whole episode, but it just felt like nothing. And I worry about them once again trying to make things converge so you can see everyone on screen together. And I just am like, it's okay to have separate stories. I mean, we read the books, we sit there with, the 3 hunters, then we're with Merry and Pippin, and then we're back with the 3 hunters, then we're with Merry and Pippin, and then, we're totally gone with that. We're with Frodo and Samwise now. Yeah. So we get it. You can change the pacing. It's okay.
Even with that first scene, I kind of thought that they were trying to like, play into what we wanted, because like they did with the orc family when they were talking about the orc. Yeah. Well,
giving them agency.
I don't want to say like giving them agency or humanizing them, more or less just like trying to what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, but kind of push the idea that the orcs didn't like Sauron. Like in the books, they say how they want to get away from him. They want to defect. They want to walk away and do it. And I think they were just trying to add on to the whole orc family, not trying to humanize them, but trying to further dehumanize Sauron, and even to the point of dehumanizing Adar, because he's becoming obsessed with Sauron to the point where he's almost becoming Sauron. So,
yeah. It was like a 30-second moment with Arondir, and I love Arondir so much. He's another great aspect of the show, but it was like you give us 30 seconds of him. I feel like that scene, it was very strange, because like he's never looted an orc before, or he's never checked an orc, and then all of a sudden he's like looking one and he just happens to dig.
Like, this is where you into your pocket notes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and mean, but like it was just one of those things. Like I think something like that. That's just a very quick thing that like you could have had the orcs looking at the map, and then he goes after them and stuff like that. That felt very like Arondir has to know to go to Eregion, and this is how we're telling him to go to Eregion, because he pulls it out, and that map it seemed very clear that was Eregion. And
trail with an X on Eregion.
Yeah, X marks the spot. Attack here, please. P.S. BYOB. But like, I wasn't crazy that he was used in that way for just such a brief period of time. It would have been nice to have, even if it was a short scene, just like make a little more sense. Like just from a storytelling aspect.
Someone in chat brought up a good point, how it shows the change of Adar. You know, Adar caring about family, caring about the orcs at first, the opening scene with Sauron, and then, you know, changing over time. We're now like they're deserting the army because they don't trust what Adar is doing. They don't. It's almost like what Glug said. Like, are you sure you want to go to battle again? You don't even know if this guy's really there. Really, just Adar only thinking in this almost tunnel vision. Like, I can't let this guy come back. Like, you don't understand who Sauron is, and being blinded by it. Blinded by the need, where he even says it in the episode where he's like, you know, it's not just his lies we have to be rid of. We need to be rid of him wholly, completely. But now it's become almost like, you know, subverted on itself. So,
yeah, it's like Galadriel's obsession, but in a different light.
Exactly.
But it's something I do like to see is just how he creeps his way into everyone in these different ways. It's so cool to see just how like it's almost like every little aspect of this show, there's a little bit of Sauron creeping everywhere. And I think the way they're executing it, like from my perspective, it's very cool. It's very creative, and it's pulled off very well. But to kind of wrap up what we've been kind of doing is like the lore aspect of this, because obviously I'm not versed at all, but like, were there any things that really, like, even if it's really small, that just like stuck out to you that were both, it was really cool to see it, or it's really cool that they did it in that way? I know we've talked about a few of them, but were there any other aspects of the lore that you were like, why'd they do that? Or, ooh, they did that?
I don't know.
No.
A lot of more oof.
We've talked a lot. We've talked a lot about the stuff that's gone on, so I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there's anything else, feel free.
I enjoyed Numenor still. I enjoyed the trial. It's not true to lore, but it's one of those things where it's like, hey man, it's cool, dude. Not much is written about that type of stuff. They respected the Valar. They worshipped Eru Ilúvatar. That's clear. You know, it's cool. I'm going to say this right now, episode 5, I still think that it wasn't Nienna. I stand by Uinen. I stand by it the whole time. The Mariners weep for Uinen. You know, it's always been that way. I stand by it. But yeah, you know, for me, good episode, but probably the lowest, like the least liked for me so far.
Okay.
Just because it is what it is. It's filler for me.
It felt like the busiest episode, where the contrast, I feel like season 2 to season 1 was they were jumping around less per episode. I feel like in season 2, when we were focusing on the dwarves, we were really stuck with the dwarves. And then when they're going to go to Eregion or to the Harfoots, like you got to spend time with the characters you were with in this season. And this almost felt like a return to form in season 1, where you're just like jumping between character and character and character, back and forth, and forth, which I don't want to say I disliked it, but it felt like they were going back to that season 1 style. And I one thing I really do like about this season is that time we are spending with these characters in longer stretches. So it felt like almost a step backwards. That wasn't terrible, or it didn't break the episode for me, but it was something I noticed of like, don't leave the dwarves yet. Let's hang out with the dwarves. But yeah, that was like one of the only other things.
Yeah, I think the parts that they did good, like the parts I liked, they did good. But then the parts they did bad. Because in my opinion, they were doing such a good job with Tom Bombadil. I was so iffy when they announced that they were going to put him in, and his last episode, it was good. It wasn't what I expected, but it was still good. And then this one, I was
secret
not
fire thing. The secret fire. I was like,
oh,
first
it's
of all,
so
you're not gonna master it. You're gonna be a
Freaking
servant.
Gandalf. You only wield it. You know?
Yeah,
You're a servant of it.
Servant of the fire, Arnor.
So
it's the Chase. That's the line that Gandalf says on the bridge.
Oh yeah.
Oh, when
Yeah.
you
Or he's
cannot
like, you
pass.
shall not
Yeah.
pass.
The flame of Udun shall not avail you.
I am a
Yeah.
servant of the secret fire, flame of Anor. You know.
Yeah, and he wears the fire ring, you know, so Gandalf, fire.
But we have 2 episodes to go before we wrap up season 2. I think with 2 hours, I think a lot can happen. And we have 4 more hours and change of things that can happen. So I'm excited to see where they go with
The
this.
last 2 episodes are supposed to be longer, like time-wise duration?
I have no idea. But
I think
see if I can look that up.
this next one is supposed to be an hour and 10 minutes. I could be
An
wrong.
extra 7
Okay.
minutes.
Ooh.
Stop.
I know.
I like
They're
that.
teasing us.
It's just
But
all going to be damrods.
there's a lot that can happen.
Yeah.
There's a lot that can happen. I could definitely see the finale being a little longer. I think that's pretty typical for a lot of shows. But I really hope no matter what happens between this episode, this next episode, and the last episode, that Kemen is just horribly dealt with. That's like, and obviously Poppy has to survive. That's a
I'm
requirement.
scared for any made-up character on this show. I'm scared for them.
I'm scared that Arondir is not going to make it past this season.
I was thinking about it.
Don't say that.
He's so good. But there was a comment earlier about like the fact that Bronwyn is gone, is that like that was a huge aspect of his story, and it's no longer a factor. I want them to write him something that just makes him meaningful to the story and continues on like such a good character. But
yeah, I mean, the actor deserves.
He's
to
so
stay
good.
on. I mean,
he's
worked
good.
so hard for this role, and
yeah, I really want him.
Yeah.
He's the one personally, he's the one I'm most nervous for. So I really hope he makes it out, and Poppy has to make it out. They'll send the nastiest letter to Jeff Bezos if anything happens to Poppy. But that, I think, is a good place to wrap it up. I know we went a little bit longer on this one, but there's a lot to talk about. I think for the finale, we'll probably be a little bit lax on the time. We'll give ourselves ample.
I think we're gonna have a big crowd too. So.
Yeah, ample amount of time. We'll get a bunch of friends in here. I know there's probably some people from like the Podwans section that would like to come in and talk about the finale, but that's 2 weeks from now, not a week from now. But I'm very excited to see where these next 2 episodes go. But I want to thank all 3 of you for being here and talking with me and telling me where everything went wrong. And I'm just like, that's crazy. I still loved it.
And we are very happy to hear that. Thank you for hosting, Chase.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been a blast. Like this whole thing has been a blast. And I'm happy to do more stuff like this with you guys in the future. But please, we'll go. This is reversed. We'll go clockwise. Callie, where can we find you on the internet? What do you have going on? Is there any fun projects you've got? Let us know the details.
Well, this season has been pretty consuming because I have Voices of Arda, and I also have Tolkien with Friends, which is another podcast with Andy, and we're also covering the season. So I think I'm talking about this show 3 days in a row straight this weekend. But I'm on Instagram as Callie Cosplay. My biggest project right now that I'm really proud of is the Voices of Arda project. So we're expanding what was originally just a podcast between New Beta and I, and we're turning it into a whole family affair thing. We're making the YouTube a place where you can go and see content from not just 1 or 2 creators, but like a bunch of them, including Kaya and Pete here. So definitely check out our new home and be part of it.
Awesome. Thank you. And Kaya. where can we find you on the internet? What are you doing? What projects do you have going on? Anything fun?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Kayake with 2 Y's, but then TikTok with Kayake with an S. But I'm also on Threads, and I'm pretty funny over there. So
I can attest to that. She is hilarious.
I downloaded Threads like a week and a half ago. I haven't really touched it.
I'm still refusing to get it on principle, but now I feel like
I have a lot of fun on it.
It's so fun.
I hated Twitter so much, and
it's not Twitter.
It's not Twitter. That's what's weird. It doesn't feel like Twitter.
Take Twitter and take Facebook and opposite that.
Okay. I hate both of those. That sounds great.
Oh, you might. Yeah, okay. You guys might be following me.
It's positive, and the algorithm really works for you. Like if you start like posting about the stuff you like, you'll see all the positive stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't get like a lot of trolls.
Yeah, like maybe once in a blue moon, you'll get like a really can we cuss on here? A really shitty person.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, okay, well, I can either block you or I can mute you. You can't delete their comments, which is the annoying part, but you can hide it from everyone. So that's the only part that I don't like is if you can't delete it, but you can still block them.
Yeah. On TikTok, if I say I like to see Star Wars sequels, I get 1,000 14-year-olds yelling at me. But thank you for letting me know about Threads and that I should actually use it. But moving on to Pete. What have you been working on? Anything new? What's going on?
I'm here like every week.
He's been here like every day, every day of the week.
But I mean, I've been really focused on the Voices of Arda stuff, and I'm getting more. Starting to do more lore videos again. I had held off, but I'm gonna start posting about Rings of Power lore now that the season starts wrapping up, where we'll start talking about who these characters are in the books. You start making your comparisons, make your own insights with it. But you can find me on Instagram and TikTok, and of course Threads, but also on the Voices of Arda channel. And here's my tag under me on everything. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and thank all of you again for being here. This has been great. I love talking to you guys about all this because it's so insightful, and it's one of those things. Like I really enjoy the back and forth of like, because it's always interesting. Like, oh, what did you like about it? Because it's just such a fun conversation to have, and it's so insightful, and it's just a pleasure every single week. So thank you guys again. We will be back next week. I will be at my parents' house next week because I'm going to a wedding on Monday. So I will have AirPods as a setup.
Your folks says hi.
I get to see my niece. She turned 1 a month ago. So yeah. Oh, and it's the big news. She's not in here. My cat turned 8 today. So she's getting a big birthday dinner. We got her a new scratching wedge. She's got treats. She got I spoil my little baby.
I spoil. You've seen the cat here. This is
we walked to the pet store. She got to run around and sniff.
You walked her to the pet store?
Yeah, I got a little harness for her. It was a little cold and rainy, so I carried her most of the way. But when we get back to my apartment, I usually set her down outside of the elevator, and she walks back to the apartment. She's an angel. I love her. She's 8 years old and this big. No one ever believes me when it's like, oh, she's 8. And she's like, oh, she looks like a kitten. And I was like,
oh my god.
Do you have pictures of her somewhere? We need
I'll send pictures in the Discord chat.
Good.
But again, thank you guys. We're gonna cut it here because I know Pete's got some fun plans ahead. But I'll see y'all next week, and then we'll be doing the watch. You guys will be doing the watch along for next week's episode as well on Thursday.
I'll be here.
All right. See ya.